sit there at the back end and I hear some stuff. I said, how can these people be pure at all? Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God has made. Is that true? Is that true? Now is the serpent the most cunning and the most guiling creature that God has made? Some people disagree and they say the fox is the most subtle and most cunning. But you know, if you know the history of the snake, well, I shouldn't say snake, let me say serpent. Because I understand, while a serpent is a snake is not necessarily a serpent. But don't hold me on that, I was going to tell you. They say a serpent is distinguished by the sound that the snake makes. If you encounter a snake that hisses, then you can be sure it's a serpent. But what I'm saying, the composite of the lesson is started by giving us introduction and saying, listen, the only things that the Lord God has given our first parents, he said it comes with a warning. You could eat of every tree. He provided everything. He said, do what you want in it, but don't do this. It comes with a warning at the consequence of death. It comes with a warning with the consequence of death. As all things come to us who sin against the Lord. The soul that sinneth shall surely die. That's a and it's a consequence of death. There's no difference, no difference. Now, you say the snakes, the way how snakes are, they are pretty crafty. If you attack them, the first thing they will do is hide their heads. And they got snakes who could actually jump. They got snakes who could propel themselves in an arrow and even pierce barks of trees. I don't know. I live in the West Indies. I never come across them snakes. But the Bible is saying that the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. And the person who wrote the lesson says that we know for sure that when the snake approached Eve, that this was no ordinary snake, it was a special snake because the Bible said, the serpent, and that definite article is speaking of a specific serpent. So we should know automatically who the serpent is. You comprehend? But in a sense, yes, because when they speak about serpents, there are those who believe that the serpent, the original serpent, was not the serpent that crawled on the ground. I'm answering your question, so hear it. The original serpent was upright, and it flew. And it flew. But because of the curse that was placed upon him, God now sent him on his belly. Now, if that is true, and the evidence in the Bible by pretending that it's true, then if serpents then were upright creatures, and if they flew, and according to the report they had, beautiful colors, nice golden colors, then it would be obvious that Satan would use an animal like that because of its beauty. Because Satan himself is a creature of beauty. So it's natural for him to be attracted to things like himself. And it so happens that in that time, the serpent had that kind of flair. But it was a natural serpent, make no mistake about it. Well, because with all the things God has made, he made no snake that tall. So let's be clear about that. So the fact that this snake is talking is by some supernatural means, like how Balaam donkey spoke. There had to be something that is happening with this snake that made the snake to hiss and speak. So he chose the serpent, Sister Dolores, because he's a deceiver. Remember I said it's a book of first. It is the first deception. So he chose to use something else instead of him coming personally, like he usually works. He never comes himself. He always works behind the scene through somebody else or something else. In this case, it's a snake. So he chose to use the snake to achieve his purpose. So then I'm introducing him now as the solicitor. And the way how we choose to solicit the woman is through the snake. Like he inhabit kings and princesses, as I said. And his strategy was simple. He decided that when he comes to this woman, he got one MO. He's going to lie his head off. Simple. He come and said, look, I'm going to lie to this woman, and by the time I finish off the shit, that's it. But according to the compositive lesson, he said, if the serpent did not come openly against the woman, because he was the most subtle animal he came with guile. That is why I said it's a book of first, the first deception. He came against God as his adversary, and by the way, Satan is not his name, it's a title. So it's a title. It's a title because in the Hebrew, the word Satan means adversary. So he make himself an adversary or an enemy against God. So Satan decides to lie because that is what he does. In the New Testament, Christ and Christ's testimony that this thing really happened. Some people say Genesis is not real. Some people say Genesis is just a story. They say it is just individuals who want to put people in bondage, and they make up a story for people to stay in line. But Jesus Christ came, and in the New Testament, he showed that this story was real. When he spoke and described to the Pharisees, he said, "You were like your father, the devil. He was a liar from the beginning and a murderer." That is one of the first lie. And this, because of that first lie, and because our first parents believed that first lie, we are where we are. And he said unto the woman, "Yeah, has God said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden?" And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the tree of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. So clearly this woman knew what the command of God was. Clearly. As a matter of fact, she added something else that God did not say to the man according to the accounts in front. God did not tell the man not to touch it. He told the man, if you eat of it, you will die. But here is Eve telling the serpent, he said not to eat of it, nor to touch it. My own revelation, my mind is telling me that when Adam told her about this command, he impressed upon her. The Lord said, don't eat this fruit, you know. Don't eat this fruit, you know. As a matter of fact, don't even touch it. You remember the Apostle Paul talking about fleeing fornication? So Adam must be impressing the woman when you see this tree, run. Don't even walk close to this tree. So the woman knew.
But what I was thinking too, not everything the Bible will say, like, okay, you say don't eat it. But he may have said also, though he won't touch it, he may not have even,
Yeah, he might not. Sure.
It was that important.
Yeah.
As I say, keep away from you, you go close things. You may have even said and all of that. But to wrap it up in a nutshell, don't eat it.
Don't eat.
Yeah.
And interesting that you make that point. This chapter here is like the chapter in Daniel. The 8th chapter in Daniel. Do you remember the 7th chapter in Daniel? The 7th chapter in Daniel, where we have the 4 beasts coming out of the sea. And the 3rd beast was Greece, and the 4th beast was Rome. Now, when we step forth into the 8th chapter, God stepped back. And he picked up the 3rd empire of Greece. He stepped back. And when he stepped back, he pinpointed the 3rd empire of Greece, and he expanded upon it. And he's talking about he started with the war between the Persia and Greece, and the horn of Alexander, and the 4 generals that really come from Greece. And he expounded that. This chapter is the same thing. After God talked about creation and the man, and he finished on the 6th day, and in this chapter here now, God is stepping back into the 1st chapter, and he's been pointing the 6th day, and he is highlighting what is going on with man. This section here now is after he tells us, well, okay, man named the animals and the woman, and the man like a woman and a partner, and blah, blah. Now he's going to say, well, okay, now that all that is settled, here why this thing come. This is taken back. We celebrate that. We celebrate that. We got to try to let our life line up with what we see. Let our walk come in line with our talk.